Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Living in the Limelight, an Anton Scholl and Friends podcast where we discuss music from the artist and fan perspective. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Living in the Limelight. I'm your host, Anton Scholl, and with me, one of my oldest friends, someone we go back a long, long way, and probably one of the most prolific songwriters that I know right now. Many, many songs in the portfolio there. So with me today is Joe Booe. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me, Anton. And hello, everybody.
Good. Yeah, wow. What a time we've had. I mean, we'll go back and talk about a lot of the different done. You've really done such more after the time that we've been together that I really want to cover a lot of that stuff. But I'd ask what you're up to, but there's so much. I see. I don't think I've ever seen anyone. And I'm going to get into that, by the way, because I do want to talk about, your writing style, but the music that you've put out and the songs that you've put out, I literally tried to go in and count the amount of songs and I couldn't. I don't know if you have a number of where you're at right now. But it is, but you do.
I do have a couple of totals. I think I've got 97 on my YouTube channel. I've got 64 published songs with another 20 on the way. They're already pretty much either finished or close to finished, and it's just a matter of getting them released. So submitted to CD Baby for distribution, getting them connected with, uploaded to BMI and included on BMI. With a target, I'm to hit 100. I'd like to hit 100. And you remember, kind of back in the day, total, cumulatively, I've probably written about 500 songs.
Yeah, that's where my number was closer to when I was thinking about, getting your number together. I'm thinking, 100 is amazing. 100's phenomenal. I mean, a catalog like that is unreal to me. Something that will probably never attain, and most people usually will not attain. But that's just an amazing number, and we'll get into how that happens. But first, let's talk about you. For all the listeners out there, because sure, there's a lot of Strychnine fans out there. We know that. But really, what about you? When did you start out? Where did you grow up? And what was your first kind of hint into saying, I'm going to be a singer?
When I was a kid, I had a cousin who was a drummer in a band in high school, and he was about 10 or 11 years older than I was. So I was 5, 6 years old, and my parents had 4 boys within 4 years. So for that, and they were young parents. They were 21 when they had me, so they were 25 by the 4th. And so as young parents, they needed a break, and oftentimes we would be offloaded on my aunt and uncle. So my cousin, their son, he was a pretty prolific drummer, and so I was just enamored with what they were doing. So they'd rehearse in their basement, and I was always getting in the way. So the guys, the singer and the guitarist were always kind of moving me out of the way. Like, Joe, you got to move. Come on, man. We're trying to practice. And so my cousin knew I had this interest, and I was listening. They were playing, music like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Grand Funk Railroad, all the stuff that was big in the late 60s, early 70s. And so that's the stuff I grew up on and always loved. My cousin gave me my first mic when I was 13, and I started singing in a band with guys in high school at 14. And then in my teens, I started playing out, singing parties and playing in the clubs that would allow an underage singer to sing in.
Did you have to get some fake IDs involved in any of that stuff? I know Chicago, we did.
They would allow me to come in and perform. And when we were done, I had to leave immediately. So I had to wait outside until we were ready to perform. I could come in and perform, and then I immediately had to leave. And everything was kind of under chaperoned escort.
Wow. And so you remember that first show that you did as a singer?
Thirsty Whale.
Really? The first show was a Thirsty Whale? That was big
Yeah.
back in the day.
And I can't remember the name of the band, and it was an established band, and they actually only had me come up and sing a couple songs with them. But yeah, it was the very first one.
What was that like for you seeing that crowd out there? Was that like, was that the thing that said, I'm going to keep doing this and this is what I really want to do?
Yeah, I mean, the first moment was terrifying because I really, at the moment, I thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? Can I even do this? I mean, I'm a kid. I've got no business even being here. And but then, you hear applause and think, wow,
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Wow. So that band, when you moved on from that band, you were in cover bands up north then in Chicago, right?
Right. Yeah. So originally I was playing in bands mostly related to either high school or guys that like knew me from high school. And then played in a band in college called Artemis briefly. And then when got out of school, started playing in just a strictly cover blues band. And Eddie Gran, who's a keyboardist for Geneva, heard me singing in a blues band. It happened to be at my parents' bar. My parents bought a bar when I was just as I was getting out of college. And he said, dude, it was the same thing everybody said. You're a metal singer. You have no business singing the blues. So he said, play in a band called Geneva with a really, really talented guitarist. And I really think that you should come in and sit in with us and let's see how it sounds. So he talked me into it. And that was the band that Rob Chrisman had founded. And Rob Chrisman is the guitarist for Rain of Fire. And so
Right.
Rob and I have been friends ever since. And in parting of our ways, we'd always said we wanted to work on music again together. So when Strychnine came back together from about 2017 to about 2019, almost 2020, when we worked on material, as that kind of fell apart because Pete Zefkiles moved back to Greece and we lost Greg Whitmore to cancer. Pete Bartoli, the drummer, and I wanted to continue working on music. So I reached out to Rob to see if he'd be interested. And it took a long time because he's a teacher and he's a football coach. And at the time he was going through some health crises because of where he was working, exposure to mold. And so he had some severe respiratory issues. But he finally agreed to try. So he sent me what became the very first song for Rain of Fire, the song Rain of Fire. And it was his piece. And so I wrote lyrics and melodies around it. We sent it to Pete and Jim Davidge, who then continued to construct it. We weren't really even a band at the time. And after the launch of that song, we decided that, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to continue with this project because we really felt we had something and couldn't find a name. So we figured, all right, we're going to go with the very first song, the very first name, and that'll be our namesake.
So how did that come about? Because as far as like the songs that you were writing for Rain of Fire, you were doing a theme basically. And
right.
How did that come about with that? Because I thought that was very interesting because I mean, nothing is even done yet. And you're already thinking in your mind of this theme or story or whatever it may be of this, about this person. So let's talk about that because I think people will be interested in that story.
The entire album, which isn't completed yet, is built around a concept. And, we grew up with concept albums and obviously love them because the idea of it is it takes it three-dimensionally, right? So it's not just a single story in the song. It's every song is connected around a much bigger story, almost like a movie soundtrack. So once we completed the first song, Rain of Fire, Rob proposed to me the idea. He said, I'd really like this to be a concept album. Do you have any ideas as to how we can shape this into a concept album? And I did, because it was something that's always kind of been on my radar too. And because Rob and I there's a lot of musical chemistry. He and I had worked together before. We really kind of share a lot of same visions and taste and style. And so I bounced a couple ideas around with him, and we started to run with one, and it kind of morphed into another. And so the basic premise of this concept album is about a soldier who gets wounded in the very first song in Rain of Fire. And he is unconscious and somewhere trapped between insanity and death. and he's experiencing past lives and deaths in each song. So through the course of the album, you're experiencing those past lives, and in most instances, a death as well. So he doesn't know if he's going to live or die, or if he's just losing his mind. So we haven't, and so really I haven't, because I'm the lyric writer, haven't determined whether or not he will lose his mind, lose his life, or find his way back. And that will be determined for the last song.
Wow. Hey, maybe you should have the fans write in or comment on something, put that out on social media and say, hey, we need a concept end. Do you want him to live or die, and see what happens on that? Yeah.
As a writer yourself, how it is often, the music speaks to you and it tells you what the story is going to be. So as much as I'd like to claim an awful lot of kind of what the storyline determinant is, a lot of it has to do with the mood and the feel of the music. Like Desert Caravan, for instance, when Rob sent that to us, what I heard in a number of ways was kind of in the introduction, very much Man with No Name by, Horse with No Name by America. And so it had that kind of feel to it. So, and then there were some Middle Eastern, a lot of Middle Eastern feel and a lot of Middle Eastern music foundation to the song. So in so being, it stood to reason to me that this should be a song about, in some way, the Middle East. And so I based it on a desert caravan, and someone, say the early part of the last 1,000 years. And he's on a desert caravan, traipsing through the desert, the heat, the dehydration, getting to him, and recognition that he could die in the sun, and realizing the light that's shining through the darkness in this, dark desert is his own eternal soul. So I'm trying to intertwine Eastern and Western philosophies in the writing. So the embracing of kind of Christian principles of, life after death, Eastern principles of past lives, and understanding and experiencing past lives. So, but in both Eastern and Western religious principles, the soul is eternal. So we don't ever die. It's just how we kind of are remanifest. So I wanted to embrace that and introduce that into kind of the overall theme of the album, and then also in each song relatively.
Oh, okay. Now, well, let me ask you about this, because this is always something that's intrigued me, and I do want to get into the story of how we had gotten together and how we met, because it was not on the greatest of terms in the very beginning. No. So it was kind of funny. But so I do want to talk about that, because it's a hilarious story now to me, because you've changed my mind on so many different things, and how to view lyricists, vocalists, things of that nature. So I will get into that, but I did want to ask about how you do your melodies, because I know a lot of people just say, well, that kind of comes to me, as I'm doing it. And I know that when I was writing, I'm doing the same thing, but you seem to have this knack of not only sitting down and writing lyrics for something either immediately or within a day or so, but you also are putting together some great melodies and hook lines. How does that come to you? And is there some kind of a formula in your brain that thinks of that?
I wish I could say that, I've got this, I've tapped into, the Ponce de Leon fountain melody.
Right.
But I think it's really just, and you and we talked about this throughout the entire time we've been friends. Music is really, really important to us. And so it's not just something that we listen to pass the time. It really speaks to our souls. And so when I listen to a piece of music, and even if it's just a riff in the process of being written into a song, something about it always kind of speaks to me, and it sets kind of a mood. It identifies a place and time, maybe, or at least, an era in time. So there's a relativity to it. So that gives me an opportunity to kind of narrow down the scope of what I think lyrically the song should be built around. And so in terms of lyrics kind of come after a melody. So the melody usually comes first. So a lot of times I try to think of it as an additional musician. So I'm trying to listen to the bass, B-A-S-E, of the melody. And Rob and I talk about this often too from Rain of Fire. So that bass melody is fairly simple in construct. He can be all over the place, and he could be doing, crazy chord progressions. He could be doing anything he wants, but that basic, almost like a bass line melody, is really what I'm going to be listening to. And I'm also going to listen a lot to kind of the rhythm section, because that's going to give me a cadence. So then it gives me a feel for, all right, what kind of cadence should I apply to the melody? And then in turn, kind of note development, chord progressions and so forth. And I try to think of it not just from a lead singer's perspective, but also the background vocalist perspectives for harmonies and what's going to work really well. Because like you and I have talked about this probably ad nauseum. To me, probably the hookiest part of a song isn't the lead vocalist part, it's the background vocalist part, because a lot of times that's where the hooks are. So I always wanted to, and a lot of our stuff, wanted you to have kind of the hook, and I was singing just kind of what was the basic construct of the song. So yeah, a lot of times it was what you guys were doing would speak to me. So as you guys were putting together, a verse, and I'd say, you can, and I know it kind of drove you guys crazy. I'd say, play it over and over again.
Yeah.
Is that be a chance to hear it enough to put together a melody and then try to build lyrics around that. But yeah, I wish I could say I have tapped into something, but a lot of it is probably just, I got lucky. I kind of figured out what worked for me. And I was blessed with having a really, really active reading youth. So I spent a lot of time reading. And so that gave me a lot of fantasy science fiction foundation to draw storyline from. And then just even reading anybody and everybody, like, even reading Stephen King. But I read a lot of George Herbert. I read J.R.R. Tolkien. I read a guy named Robert Jordan who wrote like 14 or 15 books that were 750 to 1,000 pages each. So huge storylines and complex storylines. So it really allowed me to kind of tap into creativity, and that helped a lot.
Is it chorus coming to your mind first, or is it individual lyrics for the verses?
I guess depends on how the song is presented to me. Like when Strychnine worked on a lot of our songs, and we wrote an awful lot of songs. It was all improv. So it was improvisational, and it was all collaborative. So it would be in a jam session. So it may just have been the verse came first or the chorus came first, whatever you guys were working on as a riff. If we decided, this kind of sounds like chorus music, I would just try to build a chorus around it. With what I'm doing now, because of the nature of, recording today, everybody's got a DAW, everybody's got recording equipment in their computer and at home. More often than not, somebody sends me a completed composition. So I get an entire, music composition, sans vocals, and then I write to that. So a lot of times the orchestration's already built for me, so it makes it a lot easier. I say, this obviously is where the verse is, where the bridge is, where the pre-chorus, where the chorus is. So that makes it a little easier.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult. I mean, to you, it comes naturally. And, and I know that firsthand from what I've witnessed. And that brings me to the, I know I talked about this in my podcast previous, when actually I was being interviewed.
When you got right.
Yeah, they kind of turned that around. She turned that around on me. I had my co-host Steffi Walker, and she turned that around on me and started interviewing me, and I was kind of caught off guard in a sense. But yeah, but it was fun. And I mean, I never told the story before to anybody, but I'm not going to repeat the whole thing. But bottom line is that I was in a band, and we went into the studio to do some songs, and I've never been in a studio before, and I didn't understand what to do. I sounded awful. I didn't realize that, like, I'm listening into headphones and the music is playing and I'm supposed to sing into a microphone, and the latency was off. I found out later what that meant. I didn't realize. So I'm singing, but yet it's not happening here. And then I hear myself later, and not until I got into recording did I realize what latency was, but it was just not set up properly. And it was awful. So
really tough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's just one of them things that you can't sing and then hear yourself. It's got to be at the right time, you know. So when we got together again for another practice, and then all of a sudden, you know, this good-looking Adonis of a man shows up, and he's, you know, and the other guys are like, hey, you know, let him sing a couple of songs here. We started playing some music. We were doing some Judas Priest, and we were playing some Van Halen and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, all right, well, this is great. Whatever. Let's move on. Let's practice our stuff, you know? And we had one original at the time. And that one original took me probably a week or weeks, I don't know how long it was, to write the lyrics for it. And it was like the worst kind of sophomorish lyric. It was like it was a comedy song, you know, because I didn't know how to express feelings at the time. And, you know, I made it into kind of a comedy. You know, it was fun to do and it worked out. But the point is that it just was not awesome. And we got together on that. And then as we're singing the songs and as we're playing, and then you had said, well, listen, as we get, you know, further into these songs, things will get better and this and that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Who are you? Right. You know? And then that's when I walked out of the room and the guys followed me and I said, what's going on? And they said, oh, well, we think this guy should just be the singer of the band and not you. And, you know, obviously I took that kind of hard in the very beginning and I'm like, what are you talking about? What is that? You know, and what's that?
Understandably.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, what's going on? And they said, just give it an opportunity, give it a chance. And I said, it's funny because the line I had said was, this guy doesn't even play an instrument. How good could he possibly be? Nobody, stand-up singers are just useless people.
Right.
You know, that was like my idea. I played bass, I played guitar, I was, you know, doing stuff. And yeah. And then they said, just give it a shot. Yeah. And then I was like, all right, you know, fine, whatever. I'll give it a shot. Now, obviously in the back of my mind, I was like, this ain't going to happen.
Get this guy out of here.
Yeah. We sat down, we were upstairs in the attic practicing, and we started playing a song. And honestly, I don't remember if it was Desert Eagle or if it was Silence. I don't remember.
I think it was Hell on Wheels.
It was Hell on Wheels. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And we just started jamming that. And I'm looking and you're sitting down in the corner, you know, and I'm like, God, this guy's like, this guy's got to be totally bored. He's just sitting in the corner, you know, and we're playing and not thinking about it. And then you're like, yeah, play that. Just keep doing that. Keep doing that. And we're like, what? Why does he want to keep hearing this? And I'm thinking, okay, now the guy's going to go home. We wasted an entire day. He's going to go home. He's going to write these lyrics and all that. And then all of a sudden you pick up a mic and you start singing. And I literally stopped. My whole brain just stopped functioning. Everything was just like, wow, what just happened? And then I'm listening to those lyrics. I'm one of those people who actually do listen to lyrics. I mean, there's people in bands that don't know the songs at all. I listen to the lyrics. And at that point in time, I was like, first I was like, well, he got lucky. He knew that lyric already. He wrote that a long time ago, you know, right. Let's see. And then all of a sudden the songs just started flowing, and it was such a refreshing thing to see. And it completely changed my mind, you know, about you, about what you do. And I thought, I want to be like this guy when I grow up, because I can't do that to save my life. You know, I still can't. But,
and I'm glad I won you over, because I can remember how tense it was in the beginning. And honestly, I didn't know that was going to happen either. My understanding was they said, yeah, you know, we already talked to Anton. He knows you're coming. You know, he realizes that, you know, it's difficult to play bass and sing at the same time. And he's got a good voice and you guys can sing together, but he knows we're bringing somebody in to see how it sounds. And so I was uncomfortable when you guys left the room, because I'm thinking, I don't think this guy really knew that I was, and I don't want to be that guy. I did not want to be that guy at all.
Yeah.
And Pete and I had grown up together. Pete Bartolome, the drummer from Strychnine, he and I have known each other since we were, 6, 7 years old. He grew up a block away from me. And so we used to jam in my garage and his garage and stuff when we were teenagers. And so he and I had always talked about putting a band together. And when he was playing with Wise Guys with Pete Zefkiles, and then he told me about you guys all getting together. And at the time, I was looking for another opportunity because I was working with a cover band up north. I was moving back to the city, and I just started working with a band from Lake Forest and recording an album with them that didn't end up doing anything. And what ended up happening is 30 years later, I ended up re-recording the entire album, and the Michael Ray Band. So I released that about 1.5 years ago, and because the bass player had passed away, and so I kind of wanted to do it to commemorate him. So it was as much a surprise to me that it was a surprise to you, because I did not want to be that guy. But we had a great writing chemistry. Everybody brought something to the table. Pete would come up with a riff. You'd come up with a transition. We'd all kind of brainstorm in terms of, all right, how long do we want each part to be? Are we going to do 4 8 measures? Are we going to double up the ending? How long is the solo going to be? And, it was a kind of a revolving door with additional players, but it was the 4 of us from start to finish. And so those same four guys have always been kind of the core of Strychnine. And I think really, as much as everybody else, and Greg in particular, he contributed a fair amount to what we did. It really was the 4 of us that did almost everything. So, and it was a great chemistry.
Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing that kind of caught me on that also, was that chemistry. I mean, the fact that we were able to work off of a riff, that Pete Zefkiles brought in, and then kind of move it from there and actually get the song. And then you were doing your part with the melody and lyrics. And it honestly, it did free me up from all of that, obviously. And it was something that we were able to focus really, really good on the music. And then you, as you said, you brought me in on the vocals to do a lot of the backgrounds of but they weren't necessarily backgrounds. They were like really big parts of the song itself. And the way I think
a lot of our choruses were almost duetted. Where, it was a lot of call and respond kind of choruses. And or it was just you and I singing a lot of the same parts. And because of the differences between our voices, and I suppose they weren't that different, but they worked incredibly well together.
Yeah, we were able to do stuff, and I Can't Take It, and songs that were really just Sunday's Child. All of the songs that we had done, that we had put together, that we did so well together on, I thought was great. We even actually did, correct me if I'm wrong here, we did an a cappella version of Sunday's Child at a wedding.
Yes.
Do you remember doing that?
I do remember doing it.
That was, and you know what, when you can do that without the music of a song, it stands the test of time. So it's really good. Right. So you have now gone on to do so much. I mean, Strychnine was a great time in I would say it was one of the things that we had, that style, I thought, of, I don't know, Queensryche, just different types of music that I really loved, but was never able to kind of perform and conquer. And I think we really had a great sound, and I thought it was a lot of fun. And the album, obviously fantastic. We came back together again to do some more songs that we've honestly been doing, that we did remotely, which brings me to Rain of Fire again, to where a lot of people may not know this, but Rain of Fire has never literally been in the same room at the same time practicing or doing a song, because Strychnine was always, we never did it that way. Strychnine was always in a room, everybody playing together, everybody doing their parts, and the song came together. And now you've transitioned into everything is done over the internet, never even getting in the same room with these guys. And yet but yet the finished product is phenomenal. What type of transition was that for you?
Well, because we had already been doing it with Strychnine, when we started to record, and if for anybody who isn't aware of what we had done, in 2017, we decided to go back and revisit about 7 songs that we had tried to record. We did it quickly because it was a time I was living in Los Angeles at the time, came home for a week for us to record and try to mix and master 7 songs. And obviously, without a ton of engineering experience, the sound quality wasn't what we wanted it to be. So we decided to revisit these songs, and we were going off old recordings because Pete Zefkiles had too many issues with the arthritis in his hands. We thought that he would record, but he never did. So we were going off those old recordings. And so we were already doing the virtual thing, which is amazing because we were doing it before COVID, before it became an in vogue thing. We were already recording virtually, albeit off of previously recorded versions. So I was already pretty familiar with the process. So when Rain of Fire got off the ground, and it was right before COVID, what we would do is Rob would record, and he's a very, very accomplished musician. He plays a number of instruments. He would write a piece to a drum track, and he'd send it to us. And it would not be later, really just be the guitar piece. And then he would add keyboards and, synths and additional things, additional guitar tracks. So we've been doing that in the process. Now that has evolved into me doing the same thing with a total of 4 bands. At the same time that I started Rain of Fire with Pete, I also had been working with a friend of ours, Tim Curtis, who's affectionately known as Sea Dog. So he is the dog in Joe Booe and the Dog. So he and I recorded an entire album, a 12-song album that we released in 2021. And he and I are working on, and I'm trying to complete now, the mixing and mastering of another album, 12 songs. But I'm also working with a band called Shadow Band, which is Tom McElman, very, very, very good guitarist and a great guy from Kentucky, and a female vocalist named Christina Vox from New York. Tom and I are also working on a side project called Boo McElman, which is just songs that he and I are doing that Christina's not involved in. And I'm working with Randy Nitch, who I had a band with kind of during one of the breaks from Strychnine before moving out of Chicago, with a band called Monkey Fist. And he and I have a band called Voodoo Mirage. So they're in Chicago, he and Jesse Laraquente, and then I'm down here. So they go in the studio, record what they're going to record, send it to me. I write to it, record all my vocals, record all the background vocals, and I mix and master it, and then we put it out.
Well, I got to tell you, most of us humans here on Earth, we only have 24 hours in a day. And I don't know what alien planet you're from and how you're able to do all of this, but that is just a phenomenal amount of work. And it's not like the songs are put together, ridiculously and quickly, 2-chord songs, and then you're singing kind of the same basic thing. Every single one of those songs, different than the next, different than the last. And, the melodies, the lyrics, again, lyrics are not, you don't listen to one of your songs and it's just, I love you, please don't leave me, let me keep my dog, stuff like that. You're writing about so many different things that I know. I listen to some of the songs and I go, why didn't I think of that? But it's really amazing how you come up with those, and as many of them. Like, I even go up to people and I say, give me a topic, give me something, and yet you can list 100 different topics in a sense that you've written about, and different lyrics, stories of what you've done. And to this day, it truly amazes me. And I don't know how you do it, honestly.
We're lyricists too. So you know exactly how this all works. We're storytellers. And in college, I wanted to be a writer, and it was something that was always of interest to me. So this is my opportunity to write kind of like short stories. And so it's a lot of fun to do it. And I wish I could take all the credit, but like I said before, a lot of it is the music tells me a story. So as I listen to it, it's really evoking kind of a mood and a place and a time and the beginnings of a story. And then I'll embellish on it. But a lot of times I'm really just letting the music tell me what I should write about. So I'm lucky because I get to work with some really good musicians. I've actually just recently done a couple collaborations with other musicians that aren't a part of any of those 4 bands. I did a song called The Dark Tower, the Gilead version, with a guy here in Florida. His name is Justin Hoff, and he goes by the name Storm Kingdom for his band. And he's a one-man operation, so he does everything. very accomplished, and he does what's almost like soundtrack music. So it's great to hear something like that and think, wow, I'd love to be able to write to it. And then you get the opportunity to. And I've been a fan of his for the last year. And so when I got a message from Christina Vox, actually from Shadow Band, she is very well connected. She's probably got 10,000 followers through Vox and Sticks and Vox and Guest. So she knows everybody in the community. She's just an amazing person. And she sent me a message, said, hey, somebody in the community, very accomplished musician, would like to work with you. And I said, really? Who is it and what are they looking to do? And she said, it's Storm Kingdom. And he reached out to me and said, I want to have, some male vocals, somebody with range and power, work on a song that I've got. Do you have anybody in mind? And she said, well, why don't you talk to Joe Booe? And he said, it already crossed my mind, but I don't think he'd want to do it. She said, he's a friend of mine. Trust me, he'll want to do it. So, and I told her, tell him I'd love to. So he reached out to me, and what was funny is the song was pretty much done in 2 weeks. Listened to it for a few days, and I actually just hit record. I didn't even have anything written. But again, it's one of those situations where the music kind of told me what to sing. And so I sang what really, for all intents and purposes, became the lyrics and melodies without even thinking about it. It was almost like I was channeling it. And it's an incredible. So if you haven't heard it, I mean, it's really a great song. I got to work with a couple other guys, Plains Desperate Symphony. He had a song that he had already written, everything. So he just asked me to sing it. And I just finished another collaboration with a guy named, his band is called Mechanic A. His name is Mike. He's out of Canada. And that's coming out on Friday. So a lot of it is, like I said, I wish I could take all the credit, but it's really kind of the music tells me what to write.
Well, the fact that you're able to do that alone is amazing. And I have to say it's kind of funny because when people say to me, I think that you have gotten to me to believe in a Matrix style, multi-universe world here, because like when I was watching the Spider-Man movie, you know how they had all the different Spider-Mans come out from the different multiverse? Okay. I said, that's Joe Booe. Because I'm telling you, you go from one universe to another, and you're writing all of these songs. That's the only possible explanation I can think, that you have enough time in your life as far as doing and working, of course, but I mean, just in general, to actually do that. So I think you are living proof that the Matrix and a multiverse exists. So, so there it is.
Very efficient use of time, I guess. That's all.
Right. It's almost like a quantum leap.
Right. As you can see, fire truck back behind me, and I'm on duty today. I'm at a fire station. I've been a fireman in Florida for 17 and a half years. The station that I'm at is out in the country, and it's because it's not terribly busy. I do get the chance to work on music here. So a lot of people don't get that opportunity. When they're working, and they either have to dedicate their free time at home to working on music, or I get to do it here. And I don't really do it much at home because I also have a personal training business. When I'm home, Tracy, my fiance, she works from home, so she's almost a shut-in, and we don't get to see each other much. So I don't really want to work on music at home, and she doesn't want me to work on. When we were working on the Strychnine stuff, I was working on it at home, and it was driving her crazy. I'd have to work. Oh. I'd have to record in our bedroom, bathroom, walk-in closet, because it was at least 3 rooms away, and she'd still hear me. She's like, oh my God, I can't take it. I keep hearing you sing the same thing over and over again. You know how it is when you record. So fortunately, I can do it all here. If it weren't for the good fortune, and I do 24-hour shifts. So honestly, when I walk in the door, if we don't have any, if we do all our station duties and get everything done, if I'm not running calls, I'm in my office doing writing, recording, whatever I can, mixing and mastering.
Wow. That's great. That's great. So I have a proposal for you live on air here, in a sense. Here's what I would like to do, because, we've gone over what you did and how you do it. And I think that we have great conversation together, and, just like in the studio and just like when we practice, we gel very well together. And I would love the opportunity, to do a couple of these shows with you. But what I want to do is I would like to do basic shorts of things, meaning that I want to take a song and I want to break it down. So if we were talking about, let's say, the Strychnine era or something, what I would like to do with you in the future is to do these short podcasts of maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be, of describing a song, describing it, because I think that the lyrics are so important in a song and that people need to know what they're about. And even though a lot of lyrics are included in albums, a lot of people just kind of sing along with it, but they don't realize what it's about. And I do believe that your lyrics in particular need to be showcased and need to be talked about. And I would like to do those with you if possible. And then we can go like song by song and just do a 10-minute, 15-minute short if you're interested in doing something like that.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. As an artist, you always want to be able to explain your art. So much of it is interpreted, obviously, by the listener with music. But obviously, there's a message behind every song that we write and everything that you put out. So it's nice to be able to tell the whole story, in every dimension as to what the real story is behind it, behind the song itself, and what you're hoping to convey with it. Definitely.
Yeah. And it really, the thing that kind of brought that about too was that about a year ago, maybe or so, I was always writing lyrics and I was always trying to put songs together that I wanted to tell a story, as we all do. So I was practicing with my original band and I've been playing with the same guitarist for years. We've recorded together. We've played together. We've done many shows together. And one day I had brought in lyric sheets because I was trying to choose between what songs we were going to do, live and practice. And one time during a break, I had walked out and I come back in and the guitar player's looking at the lyric sheets. And he says to me, "Dude, these are your lyrics to the songs?" I said, "Yeah, you've been playing them for years." He goes, I never knew what they were. He's like, these are great stories. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's been years that you've been playing with me and you never knew the meanings of any of these songs. And he said, no, absolutely not. And we started cracking up. And I thought, from that moment on, I got to talk to Joe because there's so many songs out there that have been done that are, that tell such great stories that we got to get them out to the people. They got to know what these songs are about.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah. There's even, there's people now that are like, that don't know the meanings to songs that they knew back in the 80s,
right.
Which is frustrating because they sing the song, they know the words, but they just kind of sing them, but don't actually know what the song is about, which is always hilarious to me as a lyricist.
Right.
So yeah, if we can do that, I think
that's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah. I think that would be great. We got to get that together and we got to talk about that because it's something that I really want to put together and something that I think would be great. Showcase your lyrics on the stuff, showcase some of the stuff that I've written before too, and talk about that. Kind of you got all these different collaborations and the only one that you haven't collaborated with is me. And I feel bad about that. So let's do this. We got to collaborate on this podcast together and, do some little shorts on there and make something happen.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't aware of the situations with Strychnine, and you and I have for years have talked about it's never going to happen. Maybe it'll happen. It'll never happen. Maybe it'll happen. But Pete Zefkiles, who was the guitarist for Strychnine, is going to be moving back to the United States again. Mm-hmm. And his arthritis has been kind of abated a little bit. He's been doing a lot of stretching and exercises with his hands. Yep. And so he and I have spoken several times, and I know you recently spoke to him too. He wants to get back together and work on some of our unfinished or unrecorded songs that were finished. So we probably have a good dozen songs that we'd like to record. And if that is possible, if he is back and he's supposed to be moving down by you in Arizona, that there may be another collaboration on the front for us.
That would be certainly something because he actually FaceTimed me and he was jamming on FaceTime. And he's like, how does it sound? How does it sound? And it was, it just brought back a flood of memories on, the stuff that this guy puts together, the riffs that he put together back in the day. The guy still got it. And if that's how it is playing with arthritis,
Exactly.
he's phenomenal. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll work out really well, and especially
Yeah,
now
me
with the
too.
recording online, I think it'll be great.
Right. I think a lot of what were the things that hamstrung us when we tried to do a follow up to the album Theories and Principles was that we didn't have the equipment that would make it possible at the same professional level as going in the studio. We also didn't have the time or the money and inclination to go in and do a second album, full blown album, because I was in California and everybody kind of moved on with their lives. So it would be great for us to finally, put down music that I think is relatively timeless. I don't think people would hear it and say, "Ah, geez, that just sounds like old '80s stuff." I think it would be well received.
Right. Oh yeah. And listen, I got to give a big shout out to Pete Bartolome, because not only, drummers don't get the respect that they certainly need, but not only did Pete, as we were putting the song together and writing the song together, they would not have been the same songs without that beat that Pete put together in the background. And not only
No
that,
doubt.
this guy has turned into a great recording engineer, and, mixing and mastering. He's done songs for me. I know he's done the Rain of Fire stuff for you guys. I mean,
Right.
that is
Yeah.
that
Pete
is
does.
phenomenal. Behind the
Pete
scenes
is the
stuff that,
sole
Pete
engineer.
does.
He's the sole engineer of all of our stuff.
Right. Right. The stuff that he's able to put together, it's really exciting that between all of the stuff that we can do together, as a band, that, now if Pete Zefgile is going to be moving back out here, I can get him into my studio. We can record some files, send them out to you,
Right.
get them over to Pete. I just think that, with Pete Bartolome at the helm, and man, the guy can still play drums like nobody's business. So,
He's a much better drummer now than he was then. And now he's got the additional education, and self-taught education of engineering, so he can mix and master better than, gosh, anybody who recorded in the past. So he can do great things. And the nice thing about what we would be recording is, even though it's been 20 plus years since we played these songs, they're utterly committed to memory. I mean, we played them thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
So even today, we would easily be able to pick back up where we left off and, knock these songs out fairly rapidly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be great. And I got to tell you, it's one of the, big things of my life, with Strychnine, and, the idea of it, coming back and having all of the, the 4 original members, the kind of the core of what we've done, back together again, doing that again is exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. And kind of, you heard it here first, kind of a thing. It looks like we're going to make something happen as soon as we can get, Pete out of Greece and over to here. We can start to do something. So look forward to that. So that's it. We have, we covered quite a bit, but there's still so much more to cover. But Joe, thank you for being here today. It's been great. And the amount of stuff, the amount of stuff you're able to accomplish and everything that you've done over these years, and you don't show any signs of certainly slowing down. So more power to you.
Thanks, brother. We know it is.
Where can
the love of our lives?
Oh yeah. Right. Now tell everybody where they can find your music and where to look.
You can find any of the 4 bands, Rain of Fire, Voodoo Mirage, Shadow Band, or Joe Booe and the Dog, on all the streaming services. I have YouTube channels for all of them. I have my own Joe Booe channel on YouTube as well. We can be found on X, on Reverb Nation, pretty much anywhere that you find bands, on Facebook. We have pretty strong presence for each of the bands on Facebook. There's a Facebook page for Strychnine. There's a YouTube channel, and and Spotify and every other streaming service for Strychnine. Also for the Michael Ray Band, for 7 months, the band that was in California. So you can find any of them on any of the streaming services, and you can find even the Joe Booe channel on YouTube.
Nice. All right. Well, for everybody else, Joe, hang on with me for a bit after we stop recording, because I'd still like to go over some other stuff with you. So hang on for a bit. For everybody else, thank you for joining us. And this is Living in the Limelight Podcast. with my special guest, Joe Booe. And it looks like from this podcast, you will be seeing the both of us again very soon. So certainly keep an eye out for that. Joe, thanks for joining us. And the rest of
Anton,
you, thanks for
for
joining
having
us.
me.
Thank you, sir. And we'll see everybody again next week. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for joining our Living in the Limelight podcast with your host, Anton Scholl. Please feel free to comment, like, follow, share, and subscribe. And also add us to your playlist on your favorite streaming sites. Thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you again next week.